Hey guys, have an amazing episode you should tune into. It's with Ally Gong. So she is unbelievable. She's done so many things, published 2 books. She started an e-commerce brand. She runs a massive YouTube channel. She does a lot of coaching. She does a lot of training. We really walk through how she gets so much done in so little time and how she's just starting these companies, testing them, failing, and then moving on, and how she's kind of found those winners over time. So if you're kind of stuck in the rut and you don't necessarily know what to do, really tune into this episode.
Yeah, sure. So I did kind of speak to some publishers, but I ultimately decided the best route for the book and my brand as well would be to self-publish through Amazon. So there's like a lot of tutorials, a lot of people who have done a similar thing. So I think it really came down to planning and really just getting the content written, getting the design and illustrations done. And so I like illustrated and did all the design myself. So it was a lot of learning, but also just kind of project management, I guess, would be a good way to describe it. I think for like inspiration and creative inspiration, it's always easier to keep a record and then go back and review it rather than, having a brainstorm period in the moment and trying to force those ideas out. So I'm definitely like an advocate of scribing, like taking notes. So kind of when I made that decision to write this book, sophomore year of college, I started taking note of all my stories and like significant learnings and events from then until the day I graduated, basically. So I kind of had multiple ways of doing this. But I really started actually writing this book my senior year after I had received my job offer in New York. So I really started, and at that time I had about, I would say, over 100 poems to work with. So I go to this Starbucks in Westwood every morning at 5 a.m. before my classes. It was always me and this same homeless guy there at 5 a.m. So I would go there like with my backpack, and I had my manuscript printed out. And from then on, it was an editing process, a lot of editing in terms of the story layout. So that was definitely the hardest part, like figuring out what is the theme of this book and how to make it flow in a way that makes sense to the reader. So I think what I did then was just play around with a few different designs of how the book could look. It could be by theme, it could be by location. Ultimately, I went with a chronological order, so it's broken down into the years of college. But I really so part of being a doer for me is being very hands-on. So I literally printed out my book and was assembling my book before it ever was a book. So I think just getting really hands-on and scrappy with the process is important to actually, coming up with a solid product at the end of the day. So I'm a big journaler. So I've actually been journaling since the 4th grade. So physical journal is probably my most consistent form of note taking. I did do like iPhone notes throughout college, but in my post-grad life, I've transitioned more to Notion and Bear. I would definitely say the second book was a lot easier. And I think the biggest difference was the timeline that it took. So my second book, I wrote it pretty quickly. It's about COVID, and I published it December of last year. So that already is like a 1-year timeline, and that one is illustrated as well. I think in the publishing world, or if you're an aspiring writer, I honestly think the first piece of work that you put out to the public is the hardest. With LA Baby, there was just so much personal kind of fear tied into it. And even when I had a completely finished manuscript, there was like a month where I was just teetering between, I'm going to publish it, no, I'm not. because there's just, I think for a lot of artists, there's that fear of putting your work out there and that fear of judgment. So I think that was definitely present when I was writing LA Baby. But after that book was published and I got a lot of positive reception from readers, that made the process for the second book a lot easier, especially like mentally and personally. For entrepreneurship, there's a lot of risk taking always. I think it's really important to back that risk taking with research and critical thinking. So for me, I've studied entrepreneurship and I have a lot of friends who are entrepreneurs. And so at the time, it was also partly market timing. So Instagram had made their shopping button like the main button on their updated app version. And during COVID, like with the changing like work lifestyles and kind of like the more time that people had, like there were definitely a lot of e-commerce brands springing up. So that kind of factored into this like market timing. I will say for Babeboxers specifically, my initial idea was to actually do a fashion brand launched under my own personal brand. So I'm pretty tall. So I wanted to do a boutique kind of catered towards taller women. So I put in a lot of market research, put together a business plan. But it's a competitive market. Like the Instagram retail fashion market's very competitive. So I definitely had my doubts. And then kind of along that time, my sister kept bringing up this idea of girl boxers. So then I did a little more research into that field, and it's an idea that I personally love. I'm a big fan of like loungewear. So after doing a bit of research into that, I decided it was a much more viable and kind of more original, unique idea that had a better market, I guess, a product market fit. So we kind of went from there. So I would say there's definitely, a lot of research, and it wasn't the original idea that I had. There was a lot of pivot involved. For me, I'm really thankful to have my sister as a co-founder. I think that's been really grounding in our launch process. So I would say finding the right blend of talent, and if you don't want to put everything on yourself, like it's definitely okay to like collaborate and build out a team. So we've actually expanded our team with a TikTok intern about 2 months ago. So she's, we're a great team of like 3 girls now, and that's been super fun and just productive as well for all of us. So I think that aspect was really helpful because it is very stressful and there's a lot of pieces to the picture. I'd say also like the other thing is having a passion for the product and the mission, the purpose that your brand is serving. So that's definitely one of the things that pulls us up through all the work and the planning we do, is really seeing the customer and the way that the product can impact their lives. I think having passion for that is really important.
Hey guys, we put a bunch of effort into making great content for this YouTube channel, so please hit subscribe, leave us a comment, hit like, and tell a few friends about it.